soil testing for fruit trees, whether you're planting one or many trees, friends. The cost of a soil test is a small price to pay for the precision possible with the insight of a soil test, especially if it happens that you don't really need to amend your soil. Brilliant. But in event that you do, then you can approach it with that much more exactness, assuredness. And it's such a good feeling. And I just want to share, too, that a soil test is one very empirical way of understanding the soil beneath our feet. Just one tool in a toolbox. And that is not a great toolbox, if there's only one tool in it. Check out Elaine Ingram and her soil food web work. There is so much more to say. Soil is not simply chemistry, as a soil test might lead you to think. Soil is this biogeochemical, rich, relational community matrix, ever evolving. And so, yes, testing your soil is only going to tell you part of the story. A very crucial part, though. So let's dive in. So how do you do a soil test? Check out our blog, Soil Testing Made Simple. Indeed, you have to do it, so it's not so simple that it'll do itself. But that being said, I think you'll find it's something that you'll look forward to every year once you get into the flow, or every 3 years if that's more your style. It's a whole lot of fun to go digging in the ground and see what comes up next. So yes, once you do your soil test, keep in mind that too, when you're sending in that soil test for trees, that gardens and trees, orchards, have different needs. So when you're filling out your little bit of paperwork for those soil tests, you want to be sure that you're saying, yes, we are planting trees in this ground to come and not eggplants, for example. So yes, when you get those results back, whoa, it's kind of another language, and I'm excited to break that down for you too in another post so that you don't feel like you're just, swimming in what's going on now. But you'll generally see that any given nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, magnesium, all of these things depends on the test. There's lots of different tests, but generally you'll see they're either very low, medium, high, very high on this spectrum. And honestly, there's absolutely no reason to do anything unless something is very low, which is the good news. And now let's talk pH. It's always handy to know what the pH is. And anywhere from 6 to 6.87 is a really great window for your trees. Not too acidic, not too alkaline. If you have higher organic matter, that means that the pH doesn't matter as much. So it could be a little below or a little higher than that and still be perfectly fine. And of course, our goal always is to be building organic matter. More on that soon. But let's walk through nitrogen, the N of NPK. Unlike squash, you don't need a lot of it. Most vegetables just want lots and lots of delicious nitrogen. Of course, in balance with everything else, but it's true. Trees with too much nitrogen it's really not good at all. So actually having lower nitrogen is not the worst. So, honestly, putting compost in as you're planting your tree is perfect. And then amending your soil, basically just by mulching it with a woodsy, like wood chip compost kind of scenario on top, keeping that layer at the very top where those feeder roots are just going to be soaking it up for years, if not decades to come. That's really, honestly, as much nitrogen as you need. Also, P.S., if you're looking for compost, we have some on our website, and we ship it in small bags. But you can also come scoop your own on the farm in spring. Stay tuned and don't be shy. And now for phosphorus, the P of NPK. And phosphorus is crucial for root development, especially. And here's the thing, phosphorus can be hard to mineralize. There can be a lot of phosphorus in your soil, but not necessarily in a state that your trees can take up. And this is where we get to talk about fungi. Can we always just talk about fungi? Their mycelial networks they're so good at finding and mineralizing phosphorus. Can we just talk for hundreds of millions of years? Fungi have been evolving enzymes so that they're actually digesting rocks. Rocks! Digesting them, breaking them down into tiny little ions. So yes, fungi are amazing. And basically they hang out with trees and all kinds of other plants. And they do a lot of trading, a lot of cooperating. And the tree is like, yeah, I've got all this green, I've got all these sugars, all these carbohydrates, all those photosynthesates, and that's such a fun word, photosynthetes. But I need more phosphorus. And the fungi says, well, I don't photosynthesize. I'd love some sugar. And here's some phosphorus. So yes, let me count the ways. Making a woodsy meadow, fungally dominated soil for your apple trees and all of your trees are going to be the dream of all of our dreams. So yes, if you're low in phosphorus, you can add some additional rock phosphate, rock powders, and there's some directions on our blog of how we do that and at what proportion. And honestly, if you are low in phosphorus, just give them that influx as you're planting to get them started. And then as long as you're giving them lots of compost and that woodsy wood chip based compost and wood chips themselves, you're going to be set. That fungally dominated soil is going to be finding that phosphorus and bringing it right to your plant, and you can be confident. So now let's talk about potassium, the K of NPK, which is so crucial for a lot of things, honestly. Size of the fruit, I mean, among other things. But no, really, potassium. And the color, the quality, the hardiness, the storage of your fruit, profoundly tied up in its potassium reality. And if you're low in potassium, things like wood ash, things like green sand, granite dust are crucial. And of course, there are so many other micronutrients as well. Manganese and zinc, boron. Oh my goodness, there's a lot. And if you're low in any of them, honestly, rather than putting a specific micronutrient on, I recommend just getting some kelp meal and incorporating that so you're putting on all of these macro and micronutrients kind of in a plant context, right? In the context of a living thing, not as this isolated, distilled down, and here's this individual thing. We're all in community, and so many of these nutrients and micronutrients have profound relationships with each other that we're just beginning to understand, that we will never fully understand. So rather than thinking of, yes, I need this, I give it this, like it needs this, probably it needs all this other support, like a community. So yes, kelp meal is a fabulous way to approach that micronutrient health as well. And I just want to now remember that this soil testing and this chemistry that I've been describing is such a fascinating portion of how to understand the world. It's such an incredible lens to understand what's happening in your orchard and in your life and in our world. And it's just a lens, one of many. And I go for the biology any day myself. And just to remember that orchard ecology is a fungally based ecology and is a fundamentally community based ecology. So it's not something to be understood just by looking at your soil organic matter even, or just by your NPK levels or your pH. It's so handy to have that as one of the tools in the toolbox. But if nothing else, just focus on mycelium and having a fungally dominated soil, putting on lots of compost, lots of wood chips, and chances are good that apples will find themselves right at home. So yes, the greatest gift you can give yourself and future generations potentially is planting a few trees. And one of the greatest gifts you can give those trees is to get a soil test and to think a lot more about soil as a food web, as Angela Ingraham and so many beautiful humans are talking about. So those trees can sink their roots into rich, fungally dominated soil so they can establish quickly in community. Wouldn't that be nice for us all? May we all fruit